Look, we all know Ubisoft has been in a tough spot the last year, and it's been pretty much their fault. But how did they get there? We've seen their stock go from here and drop like a bad habit all the way down to like $10 a share. It's been insane to watch. But Andy Pants Gaming. Now, I have not seen Andy Pants Gaming before, but I've heard of him in the periphery. But I got this video here and I watched some of it. And he talked to an anonymous source who had worked at Ubisoft for 11 years. And we're going to watch some of this video. And I encourage you guys to watch the whole thing. I'll put the link down in the description. But this is an insider who spoke to him, obviously on the condition of anonymity, as most of these people do, because they don't want to get fired. And I found this really interesting because whatever you think of the Ubisoft story, I think there's a lot of value in what is being said here. And whether you believe it or not, you still could believe that this type of thing has happened. So let's take a look at this thing. This video is called The Real Story Behind Ubisoft. So here it is right here. And let's just take it from here. I'll stop and start as we go along.
Our story begins with a former Ubisoft employee who chose to speak to me. He didn't want his name revealed, so we will call him simply Chad. This dude is based as hell. He spent 11 years working for the Montreal studio. This is Ubisoft's flagship studio with 4,000 people, and the creative direction for basically every Assassin's Creed game, Far Cry game, and Splinter Cell game was done here. Ubisoft has many studios around the world, but the primary creative vision for games always came from the big Western studios like Montreal.
Obviously, some big context there, right? This is where everything gets made, and this dude was right there for it.
I had a front row seat to the collapse of Ubisoft,
Chad explains. When he first started at the company in 2011, he was working on animation tools and rigging for a new driver game.
I feel like based off the context that's given here, somebody could probably find out who Chad is, or at least somebody who worked at Ubisoft or works at Ubisoft probably could figure out who Chad was just based off his responsibilities here.
Funny enough, this game would later become Watch Dogs. Chad explains,
when I started at Ubisoft, the production floor was 95% male. There was always a problem of nepotism at Ubisoft, but it was still mostly meritocratic. If somebody did a shit job, you would tell them. When you have a bunch of guys working together, you can be frank and you can be direct. It's efficient. But when you're working with women and minorities, you waste a lot of time.
So it's
And I'll say this. I think there's a lot of truth in the idea of, there's a lot of stereotypes around men and women. Oh, what's a man? What's a woman? Like, I think we all understand what a man is and what a woman is. At least if you're watching this video, you got a pretty good idea. And if you don't, well, I got news for you. It's called a penis and vagina. With that said, there's also a lot of feelings attached to things. And sometimes, I think we all know that when we deal with men, men are a lot more direct. Women deal with a lot more feelings when it comes to feelings and emotions. And like, as a father of 2 daughters and the husband of a wonderful wife, there's sometimes their emotions I don't even understand what's going on, right? And that's just not how I am programmed. I am like a lot of these men in that if something is done, just be straight, be honest. Let's get this shit done, and let's be honest with each other. And that's the best and most efficient way forward. And in this case, it sounds like it was pretty damn efficient at Ubisoft.
It's a simple fact that the culture that created Assassin's Creed 2 and Black Flag was 95% men. Let that sink in. Having worked in male-dominated environments myself, I know exactly what Chad is talking about here. Men don't bullshit around. Men are direct. Design and technology are always a balancing act, and so you can't waste time with people's feelings getting hurt. This is why stressful environments always work best when they are exclusively male.
Side note, this is why I keep things pretty lean at Side Scrollers, right? I have no intention of having a team of 30 people like I've had before and working with a lot of people, because honestly, I just don't like dealing with people's bullshit. I want people to give it to me straight. I want to give it to you straight, and I don't want to hear about your fees, right? It sounds like I would have been a good fit for Ubisoft in 2011 and not so much for 2024.
But the clarion call of a company that will one day collapse happens in 2012. Ubisoft starts their diversity hiring initiatives. It starts small at first and grows worse and worse. No longer are people being hired based on their talent. People are now being hired because they are a woman, they're gay, they're black, etc. Ubisoft is now hiring for that dreaded word that goes on to destroy everything good: diversity. The quartering blew the lid on similar training seminars going on at Ubisoft in 2018. An insane sentence from the
quartering's been around since 2018. God dang. Sorry, I just realized that. Holy shit.
These propaganda seminars jumped out to me. 47% of game players in Canada are women. Yes, 50% of people who play Candy Crush are women, but never now nor in the past have 50% of AAA Ubisoft game players been women.
Man, but I'm sorry, I keep stopping this, but that is probably the biggest lie in the video game space. You have all these stats thrown out by, and it starts with the ESRB, the what is it, the Entertainment Software Ratings Board or whatever it is, the people who put the E for everyone, M for mature on your games, the people who label those games. They throw out these stats like 50% of games are 50% of gamers are women. Really? You're going to say that? Like, if we're throwing in iPhone games, sure, go ahead, go crazy. And I've talked about this before. Capcom's internal stats, actually, I did a video about this. Capcom did its own stats, and it didn't even come close to reflecting 50-50. It was like 86% male, 10% female, and then 4% whatever anybody else wants to identify as or whatever. It's, you know, one of those things, the they, thems. That's the biggest lie in all of video games. And you see that lie propagated all the time. That is disinformation.
When your company training contains such bold-faced lies, you know you're in for a troubled future. Chad goes on.
Ubisoft made a huge change to try to change this 95% male demographic on the production floor.
Sorry. Ubisoft, so what I hear, Ubisoft made a huge change in trying to be successful.
When I left, it was like 75%. Not only did they not want it to be all male, they wanted it to not be white people anymore. The diversity hires, we saw that a lot. And it does change the culture because you cannot be blunt with people anymore. Resolving an issue takes twice or thrice as long. Ooh, could you maybe do it this way? Fear of hurting people's feelings, HR complaints, etc.
Now, just to be perfectly clear.
Sorry, good God. Human resources, if you work in HR, what are you doing? No, there's no normal man who works in HR. Normal men, they can't stand HR. Oh, God.
Here, I don't think myself nor Chad would say the problem here is that people aren't white or aren't men. That's not really the issue.
Yes.
The issue is and always has been skill.
Preach.
Are these people good at their jobs? Look at Bungie when they made Halo 3 or BioWare when they made Mass Effect 2. Good studios in the 2000s had a lot of white guys, but they also had a lot of Asian dudes, Indian dudes, Latin dudes, and occasionally there was a random woman who was good at her job too. Chad put it this way.
I worked with some women oftentimes who were extremely competent. People who had been there before, very strong-willed, knew their shit. But new hires, you start to ask, how the f did you get hired? The person lacking talent doesn't realize they're bad, but the competent people do. The people that are competent, they know each other. The people who are lacking don't realize that they suck. DEI hires, most of them fucking sucked. They have like 25% of the normal productive output of a normal employee, pulling time away from the more senior people as well.
I don't understand how people don't understand that. The idea that, look, in business, all that matters is dollars and cents. You're trying to make as much money as you possibly can in business. There's all these initiatives. How can we change the world? Look, your job isn't to change the world. Your job is to make money and create the best product for your customers. In this case, the people playing the video games, the gamers who want to buy it. And people loved the original Assassin's Creed. All those games that were mentioned earlier, people love those games. They were huge successes. Look, and it is, as pointed out in this video, who cares if they're white, black, gay, straight, Asian, trans, whatever? Throw out whatever you want. If they can do the job, fucking A, give them the job. But if they can't, don't.
So Ubisoft is still 95% men and will still enjoy success for a few more years after this. 2013, Black Flag comes out. 2017, Origins comes out. But slowly over time, there is this push for diversity, and it's like holes in Swiss cheese. When you start hiring people based on their gender, your company will only last for so long. Chad put it this way.
A woman will propose an idea, come up with the stupidest fucking thing ever. The manager has to try to be nice. Meanwhile, the talented people at the company are looking at each other trying to not saying anything. And this terrible ideas clog up company resources. We have to wait. We have to be polite. In a group of men, we could be direct, but you can't be direct with women. Even some dudes were pussies and you couldn't be direct with them.
Chad told me about working with a guy who was
Okay. And this part's insane, but it always comes back to feelings. I don't feel validated. I don't feel this way, right? You shouldn't be there in the first place. And it's slowing down the entire process. We're trying to sprint here. We're trying to run, right? And we're pulling a 3,000-pound weight behind us that worries about your feelings. That's ridiculous. Okay, this next part is insane.
Dudes were pussies and you couldn't be direct with them.
Seeing that.
Chad told me about working with a guy who was balding and yet came to work in little girl dresses and talked like a little girl.
It's weird. Weird. You're effing weird. Check his hard drive.
Can you imagine how distracting and annoying that would be during the day? Chad told me that 2011 was a time of open and direct criticism at Ubisoft. Somebody would say something stupid and they would get laughed out of.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got to back up because someone's going to take that. They're going to go, well, like I said, you're old enough to make your own decisions. You make your fucking decisions. Make your decisions. Go crazy. But don't you be at a certain point, you become a distraction. You are, yes, and your identity is a distraction. I'm sorry to break the news to you. If you're coming to work in a fucking dress, in a little talking like a little girl, you are a distraction. I put that on the hiring manager. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Like, that's the reality of it. We're trying to do stuff here. If you want to do it in your own spare time. Do it in your own spare time. Get your kink, go get your kink on somewhere else. Not at work. Not at work.
The room. But by 2020, with all the women and gay people and diversity hires, everything was changed because of diversity and we can't hurt people's feelings. And of course, the quality of the video games went down and down and down when you have a culture like this. So the stage was being set for Assassin's Creed Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws. But jump back to 2013, Chad told me about creating the rigging for a character on Watch Dogs that needed to look at a phone. The art director on the project was a DEI hire and a woman who was completely inept at her job. So every time they needed to get a concept approved, this woman would make them fully render the animation out because she had zero vision and was bad at her job. This was one of the many, many ways that DEI hires began to cripple Ubisoft. Chad described another time at Ubisoft, he saw one of his employees, we'll call her Claire, opening up a file, editing it, closing it, opening up a file, editing it, closing it. He noticed this happening for several days. After day 4, Chad asked Claire, "What the hell are you doing?" And she said,
"Somebody booked me for 2 weeks to go into 10,000 different files and change the name of something and close it out."
Chad said,
"Are you freaking kidding me? I could have run a batch for you and we could have had this done overnight. Your time is valuable. You should be working on something productive."
Chad said,
okay, it just goes down to inexperience, right? He talked about that earlier, the idea of the people who know what they're doing, they know what they're doing, and people who don't, they're pulling everybody back. How much time was wasted? Was that worth it? The time that was wasted on paying that person's salary for them to being inefficient? I guess it is to Ubisoft.
Said he ran into countless examples like this, and I have heard it called the diversity tax. And it's just people who haven't done a job for very long or aren't very good at a job get promoted into places of power, and then it pulls the whole institution down. These problems only became multiplied when DEI hires got promoted, as they often did. Think about it. Now people like Claire, who never should have been promoted, are managing a team of people who are making decisions just as bad as she was. Promoting these people is like the cancer going from just your arm to now your heart, where it can pollute the whole body. Is it starting to make sense now why we got Assassin's Creed Shadows?
All right. There's another 10 minutes of this video, and maybe I'll do another video on the second half because there's more to this. But if you know, it may or may not happen. I'll tell you what. I definitely want you to go watch the rest of this video from Indie Pants Gaming. I'm going to put it in the link down below in the description and or the comment section. And big ups to him for this video right there, the true story behind Ubisoft. But there's a lot to digest there, and a lot of it is, look, we've all seen this happen in all walks of life, right? I saw this at Rooster Teeth. I saw it when I worked there for 3 years, and that was right in the barnstorm. And you saw this shit happening. I was like, why is that person? They're not even talented. Why are they working here? And we've all seen this in various parts of our life, right? In various, whether it's professional lives or your personal lives. But this, I think, really points to where everything went off the rails. And it starts in 2012 at Ubisoft. That's really where a lot of this insanity started. I mean, we know that after the 2010s and everything, and Ubisoft just jumped right into it. So I would love to hear your thoughts about this down below. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button right here. Go watch another video right here. Appreciate you popping in. And if you want more, let me know.